August 1997. A small team of developers in a rural English farmhouse released a game that would define a generation of shooters. But buried within its digital arsenal was a weapon so mechanically insulted it became a global meme. The Clob, named after legendary designer Ken Lobb, was a stuttering, inaccurate mess of grey pixels that couldn't hit a barn door from the inside. It was the first time millions of players realised that in the world of virtual combat, the laws of ballistics are secondary to the whims of a programmer. Today, the video game industry is a $200 billion leviathan, employing military consultants and using 4K photogrammetry to ensure every bolt and barrel looks indistinguishable from reality. We demand grit, we demand weight, and we demand immersion. But beneath the high-fidelity textures and the recorded sounds of real-world gunfire lies a fundamental, cynical truth. Video game guns are physical impossibilities, mechanical nightmares that would explode, jam, or simply defy the laws of thermodynamics the moment they were triggered. We've traded the logic of the firing range for the spectacle of the screen. This is the story of the video game guns that don't make any sense. The most pervasive lie in the digital armory is the shotgun sneeze. In the real world, a 12-gauge shotgun is a terrifyingly effective weapon at distances up to 50 yards, holding a tight enough spread to neutralize a target with surgical brutality. But in the universe of the first-person shooter, the shotgun undergoes a bizarre physical transformation. The moment a pellet travels more than 10 feet from the barrel, it seemingly loses all kinetic energy and vanishes into the ether. It is a weapon that behaves less like a firearm and more like a high-pressure confetti cannon. From Halo to Call of Duty, we accept this balance as a necessity, a way to prevent the shotgun from dominating every map.
Yet, if you look at the barrel length and the load, these guns are effectively firing air. We are told these are tools of elite soldiers, yet they are equipped with weapons that have the effective range of a garden hose. This is the first fracture in the illusion, where gameplay balance strangles ballistic reality until it stops breathing. Then there is the magazine mirage, a spatial anomaly that exists in almost every modern tactical shooter. Take a standard 1911 pistol in any major franchise. The model is slim, the grip is narrow, and the magazine clearly terminates at the base of the handle. Physically, it should hold 7, maybe 8 rounds of 45 ACP, but the UI tells you that you have 15. To achieve this, the bullets would have to be the size of toothpicks or stored in a pocket dimension located somewhere in the player's wrist. We watch high-definition reload animations where the character slaps a fresh mag into the well with practiced cinematic flair, but if you were to open that magazine, you'd find a stack of ammunition that occupies the same physical space as the internal springs and the firing pin. It is a trick of the light, a corporate sleight of hand designed to keep the action fast while pretending to respect the mechanical limits of the hardware. If the magazine mirage is a minor lie, the gunblade from Final Fantasy VIII is a full-blown hallucination. February 1999, Squall Leonhardt stepped onto the screen wielding a weapon that attempted to fuse the elegance of a revolver with the weight of a broadsword. On paper, it's the ultimate cool factor. In reality, it is an engineering catastrophe. The design suggests that pulling the trigger causes a vibration in the blade to increase damage, an idea that ignores the fact that a hollowed-out blade containing a firing mechanism would have the structural integrity of a wet cracker.
Every time that sword struck armor, the delicate internals of the revolver would be pulverized by the shockwave. You aren't wielding a weapon, you're wielding a ticking time bomb of misaligned gears and shattered cylinders. It is the peak of aesthetic overfunction, a weapon designed by a committee of artists who had never held a hammer, let alone a firearm. We move from the impractical to the impossible with the Fat Man from the Fallout series. October 2008, players emerge from Vault 101 to find a catapult designed to launch tactical nuclear warheads. It is a handheld slingshot for the end of the world. While the game presents it as a triumph of post-apocalyptic MacGyvering, the physics are suicidal. A nuclear projectile of that size, launched at such a low velocity, would create a blast radius that would incinerate the person pulling the trigger before the shell even hit the ground. There is no safe distance when you are throwing a miniature sun with a bungee cord. It is a weapon built on the cynical assumption that the player doesn't care about fallout, radiation, or the basic inverse square law of explosions, so long as the mushroom cloud looks good on a 1080p monitor. The madness isn't limited to human engineering. The Needler from Halo is a masterpiece of alien design that falls apart under the slightest scrutiny. It fires long, jagged shards of pink crystalline Suban, which supposedly track enemies through the air and then detonate in a super combine explosion. Scientifically, this requires a projectile that is simultaneously a heat-seeking drone, a high explosive charge, and a crystalline shard capable of piercing titanium armor, all powered by a fuel source that is never explained and stored in a top-mounted magazine that seems to grow the ammunition out of thin air. It is a weapon of pure fantasy, a glowing purple thumb in the eye of anyone who understands guidance systems or chemical propulsion.
It works because it has to work, not because it could ever exist in a universe governed by Newton. In the pursuit of the ultimate weapon, developers often create things that defy the very nature of matter. The BFG 9000 from Doom is a big fucking gun that fires a ball of green plasma, which then shoots out rays to liquefy everything in the room. In 1993, this was a revolution. In 2026, it is a thermodynamic impossibility. The amount of energy required to sustain a floating orb of plasma that can intelligently target biological matter while ignoring the shooter would require a power plant the size of a city block. Instead, it's stuffed into a handheld chassis that doesn't even have a visible cooling vent. To fire the BFG once would be to turn the air in the room into a superheated vacuum, collapsing the shooter's lungs and melting the floor beneath their feet. It is a power fantasy that ignores the fact that energy cannot be created or destroyed, only misused by idiotic space marines. Even the most realistic games fall victim to the tactical knife paradox. November 2009, Modern Warfare 2 introduced a world where a soldier could be hit by 3 rounds of 5.56mm NATO and keep running, only to be instantly killed by a single swipe of a kitchen knife to the toe. This is the video game logic at its most desperate. It creates a hierarchy of lethality where a piece of sharpened steel is more powerful than a supersonic lead slug propelled by expanding gases. It suggests that the soul of the weapon matters more than its kinetic output. We accept it because we want the satisfaction of the melee kill, but in doing so, we admit that the guns we spend hours customizing are essentially secondary to a 10-inch blade. The ballistics are a lie. The damage numbers are the only truth.
We see this same cynical disregard for logic in the pipe weapons of the Fallout universe. These are firearms made of rusted copper tubing, wood scraps, and rusty screws. In any real-world scenario, firing a .38 caliber round through a piece of corroded plumbing would result in the pipe exploding, sending shrapnel directly into the shooter's face. The chamber in these guns is often just a hole drilled into a block of wood. There is no rifling, no pressure seal, and no headspace. They are suicide specials that the game asks us to use for hundreds of hours. It is a stylistic choice that relies on the player's ignorance of metallurgy to sell a scrappy survivor vibe. In reality, the wasteland would be littered with the corpses of people who tried to fire a bullet through a bathroom sink pipe. The minigun is perhaps the most egregious offender of the rule of cool. In almost every action game, a hero can pick up a 6-barreled rotary cannon and walk around hip-firing into a crowd. In reality, an M134 minigun weighs about 85 pounds without the batteries, the motor, or the thousands of rounds of ammunition required to feed its 6,000 round per minute appetite. The recoil alone, roughly 300 pounds of continuous force, would knock a human being flat on their back and probably dislocate both shoulders. It is a vehicle-mounted weapon for a reason. But in the digital world, we allow the protagonist to carry it like a heavy suitcase, ignoring the fact that the ammo crates alone would require a forklift to move. It is a weapon of mass destruction that has been neutered into a handheld toy for the sake of a power trip. As we move into the era of the looter shooter, like Destiny or Borderlands, the guns move from unrealistic to hallucinogenic. We have guns that fire smaller guns, guns that scream when you shoot them, and guns that track enemies across dimensions.
Borderlands 2 introduced the Bane, a submachine gun that literally yells at the player. While hilarious, it highlights the total decoupling of weaponry from reality. We are no longer looking at tools of war, we are looking at interactive slot machines with barrels. The damage is no longer a result of a bullet's mass and velocity, but a stat generated by a random number generator. A gun can look identical to another, but because one is legendary and the other is common, it does 5,000% more damage. The physics haven't just been ignored, they've been replaced by an economic model. This brings us to the silencer myth, a lie so deeply ingrained in our culture that it's almost impossible to correct. In games, a suppressor turns a thunderous explosion into a gentle thwip that wouldn't wake a sleeping baby in the next room. In reality, a suppressed gunshot is still about as loud as a jackhammer. It's designed to protect the shooter's hearing and make it harder to pinpoint their location, not to turn them into an invisible ninja. By selling this stealth fantasy, developers have created a generation of players who think you can clear a room of guards with a hush puppy without anyone noticing. It's a cynical shortcut for level design, allowing for stealth sections that would be impossible in any world governed by acoustics. Even the way we aim down sights is a mechanical fabrication. In most games, clicking the right mouse button snaps the gun to the center of your vision with robotic precision. There is no sway, no misalignment of the front and rear sights, and no consideration for the eye relief required to see through an optic. We are floating cameras with a gun glued to the bottom right corner of our vision. When we zoom, the entire world narrows, as if our eyeballs have suddenly become telescopic.
It is a digital comfort, a way to make the act of killing feel smooth and intuitive while ignoring the physical struggle of holding a 10-pound rifle steady while your heart is hammering at 140 beats per minute. The final insult to logic is the infinite ammo crate. We see them in every wave-based survival mode, a wooden box that somehow contains an unending supply of every calibre of ammunition known to man. It is the ultimate gameism, a point where the developers stop trying to explain the world and just give the player the buttons they need to keep the dopamine flowing. We don't ask where the bullets come from, how they're organised, or how they fit into the player's pockets. We just click the box and continue the slaughter. It is the moment where the empire of the gun reveals its true nature. It's not about the weapon, it's about the button press. Video games spend billions of dollars to convince us we are in a living, breathing world. They simulate the way light bounces off a puddle and the way wind moves a blade of grass. But the moment we pull the trigger, that simulation collapses. We are wielding objects that would melt, explode, or vanish if they were ever brought into the sunlight. We accept these nonsensical machines because they are the magic wands of our era, the tools we use to impose our will on a digital landscape. We don't want the truth of the firing range, we want the lie of the legend. We want the gun that never jams, the magazine that never ends, and the shotgun that turns into dust after 10 feet. This is the legacy of the digital armory, a collection of beautiful high-definition lies that have conquered our imagination by murdering every law of physics in their way.